The Hound of Death by Agatha Christie. I first heard the story from William P. Ryan, a correspondent for an American newspaper. I was lunching with him in London on the eve of his return to New York, and happened to mention that I was going down to Fulbridge the following day. He looked up sharply. Fulbridge, Cornwall? Today, barely 1 in 1,000 knows there is a Fulbridge in Cornwall. Most people assume there is only the one in Hampshire. Ryan's knowledge took me by surprise. Yes, I replied. Do you know it? He admitted he had always meant to go there, and then asked, almost casually, if I knew a house in the neighborhood called Trern. My interest was piqued. I know it very well. That is where I am staying. It's my sister's house. Well, now, Ryan remarked, talk about coincidences. I suggested he might stop speaking in riddles and explain himself. Fair enough, he agreed. But to do that, I'll have to go back to something that happened to me at the start of the war. I suppressed a sigh. The events I am recounting took place in 1921. At that time, few people wanted to dwell on the war. Thank God, we were beginning to forget. Besides, knowing William P. Ryan, I feared his tales of wartime adventure might be dreadfully tedious. But there was no stopping him now. At the very beginning, as you know, the paper sent me to Belgium to cover the front. Now, there was this small village, let's call it X, a godforsaken little hole, unlike any place you've ever seen. In it stood a large convent. The nuns wore white. I've no idea what order they belonged to, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, this little town lay right in the path of the German advance. The Uhlans were closing in. I stirred restlessly. William P. Ryan raised a cautionary hand. Don't worry, he said. This isn't a story about German atrocities. There were plenty of those, but this is different. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The Germans headed for the convent, entered it, and the whole place blew sky high. Good heavens! I exclaimed, genuinely startled. That's extraordinary, isn't it? One might assume the Germans had been playing around with explosives like a pack of monkeys. But as it turns out, nothing of the sort. They didn't even have a demolition squad with them. So, I ask you, could that flock of nuns have known anything about high explosives? Could even one of them? A strange story indeed, I admitted. I became interested in the rumors circulating among the local peasants. Of course, most of it wasn't worth a straw. If you believe them, it was 100% first-class modern miracle. It seems one of the nuns had a reputation for being a budding saint. She went into a trance and had a vision. And according to this vision, she pulled off a trick. She summoned the lightning to strike down the unholy enemy, and, incidentally, everything else within reach. A charmingly dramatic miracle, don't you think? I never did dig for the truth. There wasn't time. But miracles were in fashion then, angels and such. I wrote up the story, added some sentimental fluff, threw in some religious conclusions, and sent it off. It went down well in the States. People had an appetite for that kind of thing then. However, and I don't know if you'll understand this, as I worked on it, I became more and more gripped by the material. I felt I had to know what really happened. There was nothing for it but to inspect the site. Only 2 walls of the convent were left standing, and on one of them was a dark, scorch mark, a powder stain that looked for all the world like a giant dog. The local peasants were terrified of that mark. They called it the Hound of Death, and they wouldn't go near the place after dark. Superstition is always fascinating. I realized I had to find the woman who had performed this trick. It turned out she hadn't perished. Along with other refugees, she had been sent to England. I tried to track her down, and eventually I discovered she had settled at Trern, Fulbridge, Cornwall. I nodded. My sister took in about 20 Belgian refugees at the start of the war. Well, I always intended to go and see that woman when I had the time. I wanted to hear the story of that disaster from her own lips. But I was always busy with one thing or another, and the matter slipped my mind. Cornwall was a bit off my beat. I probably would have forgotten the whole thing if you hadn't mentioned Fulbridge. I shall have to ask my sister, I said. She might know something about it. Though, of course, all the Belgians were repatriated long ago. Naturally. Still, if your sister knows anything, I'd be glad to hear from you. I'll certainly do that. And with that, the subject was dropped. I remember the story the very next day after arriving at Trern. My sister and I were sitting on the terrace, having tea. Kitty, I said, did you have a nun among your Belgian refugees? You must mean Sister Marie-Angelique. Quite likely, I replied cautiously. Tell me about her. Oh, my dear, she is the most extraordinary mystical creature. She's still here, by the way. What, in the house? No, in the village. Dr. Rose. Do you remember Dr. Rose? I shook my head. I remember an old man of 83. That was Dr. Laird. Oh, he's been dead for years. Dr. Rose has only been here a short while. He's quite young and very much taken with new ideas. He's become immensely interested in Sister Marie-Angelique. You see, she has hallucinations and visions, and apparently it's all incredibly interesting from a medical point of view. Poor thing. She has nowhere to go, and between us, I think she's actually a bit touched. At least, she gives that impression. As I said, she doesn't go anywhere, and Dr. Rose has been kind enough to look after her in the village. I suspect he's writing a monograph about her, or whatever it is doctors write. She paused and asked, But what do you know about her? I've heard a rather strange story. I told her everything Ryan had recounted. Kitty was fascinated. She is exactly the sort of person who looks like she could blast you into space. If you know what I mean, she said. I think, I said, my own interest growing, that I really ought to see this young woman. Well, I'd be curious to hear what you make of her. Why not go and see Dr. Rose first? You could walk down to the village after tea. I found Dr. Rose at home and introduced myself. He was a pleasant-looking young man, yet there was something about him that repelled me. I felt an immediate flash of dislike so strong that I simply couldn't shake it off. The moment I mentioned Sister Marie-Angelique, he was all attention. His deep interest was obvious. I shared the details I had gathered from Ryan. I see, he said thoughtfully. That explains a great deal. He looked at me and continued. The case is of extraordinary interest. When she arrived, she was clearly suffering from severe shell shock. Furthermore, she was in a state of intense excitement, haunted by terrifying hallucinations. Her personality is most unusual. Would you care to come with me and speak to her? She is well worth a visit. I readily agreed. We set out together toward a small cottage on the very edge of the village. Folbridge is a strikingly picturesque place, nestled at the mouth of the River Fowl. The cottage we were heading for sat in a hollow where the sea was hidden from view. The district nurse lives here, Rose explained. I've arranged for Sister Marie-Angelique to board with her. It's convenient, as she remains under constant professional observation. Is her behavior normal? I asked curiously. In a moment. You can judge for yourself, the doctor replied with a thin smile. The district nurse, a sturdy and pleasant little woman, was just getting on her bicycle as we approached. Good evening, nurse. How is your patient? Rose asked. Much the same. Doctor, sitting with her hands folded, her mind miles away. Often she doesn't even answer when I speak to her, though her English is quite good now. Rose nodded, and as the nurse pedaled away, he rapped sharply on the door and stepped inside. Sister Marie-Angelique was lying in a deck chair by the window. She turned her head as we entered. Her face was extraordinary, pale, almost transparent, with enormous eyes that seemed to hold a permanent tragedy. Good evening, sister, Rose said in French. Good evening, doctor. Allow me to introduce a friend, Mr. Anstruther. I bowed, and she inclined her head with a faint smile. And how are you feeling today? The doctor asked, seating himself beside her. I feel as I always do. She paused, then continued. Nothing is real to me. Has a day passed? A month? A year? I hardly know. Only my dreams are real. Do you still dream so much? Always, always. And you see, the dreams are more real to me than life. Do you dream of your home of Belgium? I dream of a land that never existed. But you know that, doctor, I have told you many times. She stopped, then added sharply, but perhaps this gentleman is also a doctor, a specialist in brain diseases? No, no, Rose assured her. But when he smiled, I noticed how peculiar his canine teeth were. It struck me that there was something wolf-like about the man. He spoke again. I thought you might like to talk to Mr. Anstruther. He knows Belgium a little, and he heard something recently about your convent. She looked at me. A faint flush appeared on her cheeks. It was nothing much, really. I explained quickly, but I lunched with a friend the day before yesterday, and he described the ruined walls of the convent. So it was destroyed. The low exclamation was addressed more to herself than to us. Then she looked at me again and asked with some hesitation, Tell me, monsieur, did your friend tell you how, in what manner it was destroyed? It was blown up, I replied, adding, The peasants are afraid to pass it at night. Why are they afraid? Because of a dark mark left on one of the ruined walls. It fills them with superstitious dread. The woman leaned forward. Tell me, monsieur, quickly, what does the mark look like? It has the shape of a giant dog, I answered. The peasants call it the Hound of Death. Oh! A heart-wrenching cry escaped her lips. Then it is all true. Everything I remembered. It is the truth. It was not a dark nightmare. It happened. It happened. What happened, sister? The doctor asked, his voice dropping to a low, intense tone. She turned to him decisively. I remember now. There, on the steps, I remember. I remember how it all came to pass. I used the power, as we were taught to use it. I stood on the altar steps and begged them not to come any closer. I begged them to go in peace. They would not listen. They came on, despite my warning. And then she leaned forward with a strange, sweeping gesture. And then I loosed the Hound of Death upon them. She fell back in her chair, a shudder racking her body, and her eyes closed. The doctor rose, took a glass from the cupboard, and filled it halfway with water. He added a few drops from a small vial he had taken from his pocket and held it out to her. Drink this, he said firmly. She obeyed. Mechanically, it seemed to me, her gaze was distant, as if she were looking deep within herself. So it is all true, she said. Everything. The city of circles, the crystal people, all of it. It is all true. It only seemed so, Rose said. His voice was low and soothing. He wanted to encourage her without disrupting the flow of her thoughts. Tell me about the city, he urged. The city of circles. I believe that is what you called it. She answered in a flat, mechanical tone. Yes. There were 3 circles. The first was for the chosen, the second for priestesses, and the outer circle for the priests. And in the center? She took a deep breath, and her voice sank into a tone of indescribable awe. The crystal palace. As she breathed the words, she raised her right hand to her forehead and traced a sign upon it with her finger. Her body seemed to turn to stone. Her eyes closed. She swayed slightly, then suddenly jerked upright, as if waking from a trance. What is it? She asked, confused. What did I say? Nothing. Rose reassured her. You are tired. You need to rest. We shall leave you now. She seemed a little bewildered as we made our way to the door. Well, Rose said once we were outside, what do you make of it all? He shot a quick, sidelong glance at me. I suppose her mind is thoroughly disordered. I said slowly, Does it strike you as a mind that is shattered? No, I wouldn't say that. In fact, she spoke with surprising conviction. When you listen to her, you get the impression that she really did what she claimed, that she performed a great miracle. Her belief in her own power seems quite sincere. That is why you say her mind is disordered. Rose finished. Quite likely. Let's look at it from another angle. Suppose she did perform a miracle. Suppose it was she, personally, who destroyed the building and took hundreds of lives. By a mere effort, Will? I asked with a smile. I wouldn't put it quite like that. But you must agree that one man could destroy an entire crowd by pressing a button that triggers a mind system. Yes, but that is done through technology. Exactly, through technology, which essentially harnesses and controls natural forces. A thunderstorm and a power station are, at their core, the same thing. True, but to control a storm, we must use mechanical means. Rose smiled. Now, I'm going to stray from the point for a moment. There is a substance called wintergreen. It exists in nature in plant form, but a man can also produce it synthetically through chemistry in a laboratory. Yes. My point is that the same result can often be reached by different paths. Suppose our path is a synthetic one, but another path may exist. The extraordinary feats achieved by Indian fakirs, for instance, are not easily explained. The things we call supernatural are not necessarily so. An electric torch would seem supernatural to a savage. The supernatural is merely the natural whose laws are not yet understood. You really believe that? I asked, fascinated. I do. And I don't rule out the possibility that a human being might possess the ability to tap into a limitless destructive power and use it. The means might seem supernatural to us, even if they are not. I looked at him. He laughed. It's just a theory, he said carelessly. Tell me, did you notice her gesture when she mentioned the Crystal Palace? She put her hand to her forehead. Precisely, and she traced a circle, very much like a Catholic making the sign of the cross. Now, I'll tell you something rather interesting, Mr. Anstruther. I've been experimenting with the word crystal, which appears so often in my patients' rambling talk. I borrowed a crystal from someone and managed to slip it in front of her one day to watch her reaction. And the result was most curious. She stared at it as if she couldn't believe her eyes. Then she fell on her knees before it, whispered a few words, and fainted. What were the words? Quite remarkable. She said, "The crystal, then the faith still lives." Incredible. Gives one something to think about, doesn't it? Now, here's another curious thing. When she came to, she had forgotten everything. I showed her the crystal and asked if she knew what it was. She replied that it looked like a crystal used by fortune tellers. I asked if she had seen it before. She said, "Never, doctor," but I saw the confusion in her eyes. "What is troubling you, sister?" I asked. "It is strange," she replied. "I have never seen a crystal before. Yet it feels intimately familiar. There is something there. If only I could remember." The effort of memory caused her such distress that I forbade her to think of it. That was 2 weeks ago. I decided to wait a while. Tomorrow, I intend to continue the experiment. With the crystal? Yes, with the crystal. I shall ask her to gaze into it. I think the result will be illuminating. And what do you hope to gain from this? I asked curiously. The question was casual, but it produced an unexpected reaction. Rose stiffened. He flushed, and his manner changed. He began to speak in a more formal, professional tone. To throw light on certain psychic disorders that are not yet fully understood, Sister Marie-Angelique is an extremely interesting subject for study. So, Rose's interest is purely professional? I wondered, do you mind if I am present during the experiment? I asked. It may have been my imagination, but I felt him hesitate before answering. My intuition told me he did not want me there. Of course. I see no objection, he said at last, adding, I take it you aren't staying here long. Only a couple of days. My answer seemed to satisfy him. His face cleared, and he began to talk about some recent experiments he had been conducting on guinea pigs. As agreed, I met the doctor at noon the following day, and we walked together to see Sister Marie-Angelique. Today, the doctor was the soul of amiability. I thought he was trying to smooth over the impression he had made the day before. You mustn't take what I say too seriously, he remarked with a chuckle. I wouldn't want you to see me as some dabbler in the occult. My only vice is a devilish curiosity to get to the bottom of this case. Really? Yes, and the more fantastic it is, the better I like it. He laughed, like a man confessing to a harmless whim. When we arrived at the cottage, the district nurse needed to consult Rose on some matter, so I was left alone with Sister Marie-Angelique. I noticed her watching me intently. Finally, she spoke. The nurse is a good woman. She told me you are the brother of that kind lady from the big house where I stayed when I first came from Belgium. I am. I confirmed. She was very kind to me. She is good. She paused, appearing lost in thought. Then she asked, Is the doctor also a good man? I was slightly taken aback. Well, yes, I suppose so. Oh, she stopped, then continued. Certainly he is very kind to me. I am sure of it. She shot a quick look at me. Monsieur, you, who will tell me now, do you believe that I am mad? My dear sister, such a thought never. She shook her head slowly, cutting off my protest. Am I mad? I do not know. Some things I remember, some I have forgotten. She sighed, and at that moment, Rose entered the room. He greeted her cheerfully and explained what he intended to do that day. Some people, as you know, have the gift of seeing things in a crystal. I believe, sister, that you have that gift. She looked distressed. No, I cannot do that. To try and read the future is a sin. Rose was momentarily discouraged. He hadn't foreseen this religious objection. He quickly shifted his approach. No one should look into the future. You are quite right. But to look into the past, that is quite a different matter. The past. Yes. There is so much that is wonderful in the past. Flashes of memory come to us. They last a second and then vanish. Do not try to see anything in the crystal until I tell you. Just take it in your hands, like this. Look into it. Look deep, deeper, deeper still. You remember, don't you? You remember. You hear me. You can answer my questions. Do you hear me? Sister Marie-Angelique took the crystal and held it with a strange reverence. As she gazed into it, her eyes became blank and sightless. Her head bowed. She seemed to have fallen asleep. The doctor gently took the crystal from her hands and placed it on the table. He lifted a corner of her eyelid, then sat down beside me. We must wait until she wakes. I think it will be soon. He was right. At the end of 5 minutes, Sister Marie-Angelique stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. Where am I? You are here, at home. You dropped off for a moment. You had a dream, didn't you? She nodded. Yes, I had a dream. Did you dream of the crystal? Yes. Tell us about it. You will think I am mad, doctor, for, you see, in my dream, the crystal was a sacred symbol. I even imagined a second Christ, a crystal teacher, who died for his faith. His followers were seized, persecuted, but the faith overcame everything. Yes, 15,000 full moons, that is, 15,000 years ago. How long is a full moon? 13 simple moons. Yes, of course, it was 15,000 full moons ago. I was a priestess of the 5th sign in the Crystal Palace. It was in the early days of the coming of the 6th sign. Her brows knitted as if a terrifying vision were passing before her eyes. Too soon, she whispered. Too soon. A mistake. Ah, yes, I remember. The 6th sign. She started to rise, then sank back, passed a hand over her face, and murmured, But what am I saying? I am wandering. These things never happened. Do not tire yourself, said the doctor. She looked at him in bewilderment. Doctor, I do not understand why I have these dreams, these visions. I was barely 16 when I became a nun. I have never traveled. Yet I dream of cities, of strange people, of strange customs. Why? She pressed her hands to her head. Have you ever been hypnotized, sister? Or perhaps you have been in a state of trance. I have never been hypnotized. Doctor, on the other hand, while at prayer in the chapel, my spirit would often leave my body, and I would be as one dead for many hours. It was Truly a state of bliss. The Reverend Mother called it a state of grace. Ah, yes. Her breath caught. I remember now, we, too, called it a state of grace. I should like to try an experiment, sister, Rose said in a crisp, businesslike tone. It may help dispel these troubling half-memories. I want you to look into the crystal once more. I shall say a word, and you will respond to the first word that comes to mind. We will continue until you are tired. Concentrate on the crystal, not the words. As I unwrapped the crystal and placed it in her hands, I saw the reverence with which she touched it, once shrouded in black velvet. It now lay clear and pure upon her frail palms. Her deep, extraordinary eyes searched its depths. After a brief silence, the doctor spoke. Hound. Sister Marie-Angelique answered instantly. Death. I will not give a full account of the experiment. The doctor included many trivial words to mask his intent. He repeated some several times, sometimes receiving the same answer, sometimes a different one. That evening, in the doctor's small house perched above the cliff, we discussed the results. He cleared his throat and drew his notebook toward him. The results are most curious. To the word sixth sign, we received various answers. Destruction, purple, hound, power, then destruction again, and finally, power. Later, I changed the method. In response to destruction, I got hound, to purple, power, to hound, death again, and to power, hound. The pairs hold together. However, when I repeated destruction a final time, I got to see a word that seemed entirely out of place. And the other signs? I asked. For the fifth sign, the answers were blue, thought, bird, and finally a phrase that gives pause, the opening of one mind to another. Since the fourth sign yielded yellow and light, and the first gave blood, I conclude that each sign has a corresponding color and symbol. For the fifth, it is the bird. For the sixth, the hound. I suspect the fifth sign represents what we call telepathy. The sixth, beyond any doubt, symbolizes the power of destruction. What of the sea? I confess I cannot explain it. As for the seventh sign, I received life once in love the second time. For the eighth, the answer was nothing. From this, I gather that 7 is the sum and number of the signs. But the seventh sign was never reached. I exclaimed, a sudden realization hitting me. Because with the sixth came destruction. Ah, do you think so? Rose gave a thin smile. But we are taking these rambling, mad words far too seriously. They are only of interest from a medical perspective. I am certain they would interest a psychic researcher, I countered. The doctor's eyes narrowed. My dear sir, I have no intention of making them public. Then why this intense interest? It is purely personal. I shall, of course, keep notes on the case. I see. I said, though for the first time, I felt I understood nothing at all. I rose to leave. Well, doctor, I wish you good night. I return to town tomorrow. Ah! In that exclamation, I sensed satisfaction, perhaps even relief. I wish you success in your research, I continued lightly. Just don't let the Hound of Death loose on me when we next meet. My hand was in his as I spoke, and I felt a sudden tremor pass through him. He recovered quickly. His lips parted, revealing those long, pointed teeth in a grin. How does a man who loves power understand power? He cried. To hold the life of any human being in the hollow of one's hand. His smile grew even wider. Thus ended my direct part in these events. Later, the doctor's notebook and diary fell into my hands. I reproduce a few fragments here. August 5th, established that by the chosen, Sister M.A. means those who reproduce the race. Apparently, they held the highest honor above the priesthood, a stark contrast to early Christianity. August 7th, persuaded Sister M.A. to let me hypnotize her, resulted in hypnotic sleep and trance, but no rapport was established. August 9th, did civilizations exist in the past that had nothing in common with our own? If so, I am the only man who holds a key. August 12th. Sister M.A. is completely immune to suggestion under hypnosis, yet the trance state is reached with ease. I cannot fathom it. August 13th. Sister M.A. mentioned today that in the state of grace, the gates must be closed so that another may not command the body. Interesting, but baffling. August 20th. Arranged for M.A. to come here with a nurse. Told her it was necessary to keep the patient under morphia. Am I mad? Or shall I become the Superman, holding the power of death in my hands? The entries end there. It was, I believe, the 29th of August when I received a letter. It reached me through my cousin, written in an unfamiliar, sloping hand. I read, "Dear Monsieur, I have seen you only twice, but I feel I can trust you. Whether my dreams were reality or not will be clear later. But, Monsieur, in any case, one thing is no vision, the Hound of Death. In those days of which I told you, he who was a guardian of the crystal revealed the sixth sign to the people too soon. Evil entered their hearts. They possessed the power to kill at will, and they killed without judgment, in anger. They drank of the power with lust. When we saw this, we who were still pure knew that without completing the circle, we could not reach the sign of eternal life. He who was to be the next guardian was called to act. The old might die, so that another, after many centuries, might come again. He loosed the Hound of Death upon the sea, without caring to complete the circle. And the sea rose up and, in the form of a hound, swallowed the land. Once, before I remembered, on the altar steps in Belgium, Dr. Rose, he is of the Brotherhood. He knows the first sign and the form of the second, for its meaning is hidden from all but a few chosen. He seeks to wrest the sixth sign from me. I have resisted him long, but my strength is spent. Monsieur, it is not well for man to gain such power prematurely. Many centuries must pass before the world is ready to hold the power of death in its hands. I implore you, Monsieur, you, who love goodness and truth, help me before it is too late. Your sister in Christ, Marie-Angelique. I set the letter down. The very ground beneath my feet felt less solid than before. I began to pack my bags at once. The poor woman's faith, so sincere and desperate, moved me deeply. One thing was clear. Dr. Rose, driven by his obsessive interest, had gravely abused his professional position. I was about to rush out when I noticed another letter on the table among the rest of the mail. It was from Kitty. I tore it open. Something terrible has happened. I read, "Do you remember Dr. Rose's little cottage on the cliff? It was swept away by a landslide last night. The doctor and that poor nun, Sister Marie-Angelique, have perished. The wreckage on the shore is ghastly, all piled in a fantastic heap. From a distance, its outline looks exactly like a giant hound." The letter slipped from my fingers. Other facts may be mere coincidence. Mr. Rose, the uncle, with whom I later discovered the doctor was at odds, died that very same night, struck by lightning. As far as anyone knew, there was no storm in the vicinity, though one or two people claimed to have heard a single peal of thunder. On his body, they found an electrical burn of a strange shape. He had left his entire fortune to his nephew, Dr. Rose. One might suppose that Dr. Rose had finally managed to extract the secret of the sixth sign from Sister Marie-Angelique. I always felt he was an unprincipled man. He would not have hesitated to take his uncle's life if he were sure he could go undetected. But one phrase from Marie-Angelique's letter haunts my mind. Without caring to complete the circle, Dr. Rose had failed to do what was required. Perhaps he didn't even know how to begin, or didn't realize it was necessary. And so, the power he unleashed recoiled upon him, completing its own circle. But, of course, that is all nonsense. Everything can be explained by perfectly natural causes. The fact that the doctor believed in Sister Marie-Angelique's visions only proves that his own mind was unhinged. And yet, at times, I find myself imagining a continent deep beneath the sea, where people once lived who had reached a level of civilization far, far ahead of our own. Or perhaps, as some believe possible, Sister Marie-Angelique was remembering the future, not the past, Perhaps the City of Circles is yet to come? Rubbish. Purely a hallucination, of course.